On Wednesday, October 23, 2024, during the second day of the ongoing BRICS summit in Kazan, Russia, a powerful call for change echoed through the halls. The leaders of the BRICS nations, particularly those from Africa, spearheaded calls for an urgent recalibration of the international order, highlighting the importance of giving developing countries a louder voice in global decision-making. But why is this demand for a rebalancing of power so urgent now? And what might it mean for the future of international relations? It began with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. International developments have shown that the shortcomings of the current international system are not limited to political and security issues, but extend to economic and development issues, the Egyptian president said. He added that the escalation of the debt problem and the lack of necessary funding are among the problems preventing developing countries from quick economic growth. Could it be that the current international financial architecture is rigged against those who need the most support? El-Sisi's words underscored a deep frustration with the way international finance often seems to favor wealthy nations, leaving developing countries to grapple with crushing debt burdens that stifle growth and opportunity. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa followed suit, calling for reform of the World Trade Organization and urging a shift in trade rules that would allow for greater industrialization in developing nations. His vision is clear: a world where trade is no longer a zero-sum game, but a pathway to mutual development. He proposed deeper cooperation among BRICS members. We must intensify cooperation amongst BRICS members by launching common development programs in the fields of exports, industrial cooperation, and technology exchange, he said. But can trade rules really be rewritten in a way that would level the playing field for all? Ramaphosa's proposal raises the question of whether current trade dynamics are inherently unequal, benefiting those who have already secured industrial power while leaving those scrambling to catch up. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed brought another major issue to the table: the need for a more representative UN Security Council. With Africa's diverse and dynamic nations often sidelined in critical global security decisions, Ahmed's calls for permanent African seat on the council rings with a sense of long overdue justice. He urged that reform is not just about adding a seat, but about ensuring fairness and equality in global governance. Together, we can champion reforms that address the concerns of developing nations and ensure that their voices are heard on the global stage, he said. This is not just about representation, it's about justice, equity, and ensuring that all nations can contribute to global governance, he added. Does the current system, which limits Africa's voice, genuinely reflects the world's realities in the 21st century? Ahmed's insistence on parity highlights a fundamental question of fairness in international diplomacy that can no longer be ignored. The origins of BRICS lie in a similar desire for a more balanced global order. Founded in 2009, BRICS initially brought together 5 major emerging economies: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. These nations shared a common goal: to counterbalance the overwhelming influence of Western economic powers, particularly the G7 countries. Since its inception, BRICS has sought to champion the interests of the global South, advocating for a multipolar world where power and influence are not concentrated in a few hands. The group has grown to include new members like Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, and the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. The queue of nations seeking to join this organization is only growing longer because many developing nations see BRICS as the right platform to challenge the status quo. The African leaders' call for reforms at the BRICS summit is undeniably valid, grounded in long-standing grievances and a demonstrable imbalance in global governance structures. For decades, institutions like the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, and international financial bodies have been dominated by a handful of powerful countries, often to the detriment of developing nations. Africa, despite its vast resources, cultural diversity, and rapidly growing economies, remains underrepresented in critical decision-making bodies such as the UN Security Council, where its voice is disproportionately muted. Economic policies crafted by institutions rooted in Western-dominated frameworks frequently impose stringent conditions that stifle growth in developing regions, trapping them in cycles of debt and dependency. The African leaders' demands are not simply about increasing their influence, but about creating a fairer, more inclusive system that acknowledges their region's significant contributions to the global economy and politics. Their calls for reforms to trade rules, international financing, and decision-making processes underscore a desire for a balanced system that allows for genuine economic development, industrialization, and a self-determination. Given the persistent inequalities in the current systems, the demand for more equitable representation and policy frameworks is not only reasonable, but necessary for a more just global order. At its core, this BRICS summit is not just about shifting geopolitical alliances or the rise of new economic powers. It is about the legitimacy of a world order that claims to be inclusive while often sidelining those who do not fit into its narrow frameworks. The insistence of African leaders on representation, fairness, and equitable economic practices pushes us to ask whether the international community is willing to move from rhetoric to genuine reform. Will the demands of these leaders lead to tangible change, or will they be dismissed as unrealistic in a world still dominated by entrenched interests? This moment at the BRICS summit is a test of whether international institutions can adapt to new realities or whether they will continue to operate as relics of a past that no longer aligns with the needs of a diverse and interconnected world. African leaders have placed their demands on the table, challenging us to reconsider what a truly global governance system should look like. Is the world ready to embrace a shift towards a more balanced international order, or will the familiar forces of resistance once again prevail? As the summit progresses, the answers to these questions may determine the direction of global politics for years to come. Do you agree with President Cyril Ramaphosa, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, President el-Sisi, and the other BRICS leaders that the international order should be reformed? Share your thoughts and insights in the comment section below. And if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our informative future videos. Stay informed, stay engaged, and thank you for watching.